One of the biggest barriers to housing supply in regional Queensland right now is actually finding the workforce to build the new homes we need. When you pair a labour shortage with a lack of investment, it makes it difficult to get tools to ground. It's an issue across the country, but in the Central Highlands of Queensland, they might have found their own solution. At least that's the hope. And Peter Dowling, CEO of the Central Highlands Development Corporation, is our guest this afternoon on Drive. Peter, thanks for joining us.
Oh, good afternoon, Adam. How are you?
I'm great. I'm really good. Now, we know this is an issue everywhere, but how tough is it when it comes to finding a house in Emerald, for instance, at the moment?
Well, it depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for a rental, pretty tough, like the rest of the world. Our rentals are between, 0.5% to 1.2 vacancy rate, so that's well below what's required in a normal market. Our housing stock is fairly good, but it does require, some investment to get into that housing stock at the moment. So, yeah, it's a bit of a challenge. Emerald's a really great inland growth centre, and over the last decade, it's sort of had a growth rate of about 1.9%, which is above the state average. And we do have a strong non-resident workforce as well. So that's grown to about 7% increase in 2023. So you add that together with a low unemployment rate, and we've got a really young community out here. We've got an average age of about 34, and usually young couples and young families, 0 to 3-year-olds and a bit older. So that all adds up to a pretty heated market at the moment.
Yeah, and it can be a challenge, especially if you've got younger families that want to come to Emerald. They might be able to find work in one of the many different sectors that make up your economy. Often people will want to rent before they buy. So has that been a bit of a handbrake to growth, the fact your rental market is so tight?
It certainly has, yeah. So we've done some work. We've got what we call a resources roundtable, and collectively we've got together with council and ourselves, and we work with that group of miners in the region to sort of identify opportunities going forward. And some of their challenges, we're trying to get collaboration across the mines to do procurement work, but what really came through was there are barriers to even doing that at the miner level, which was, the accommodation, the childcare, and the attraction and retention of a workforce. So we went away and did some work with some consultants and came back with some pretty interesting information. And that's really driven what we call a workforce development and accommodation strategy. And it's an interesting piece of work, and we've sort of been a little bit bold out there and set ourselves about 16 actions over the next, 12 months to deliver.
Well, a lot of us have just thrown our hands in the air and blamed everything for what has transpired. And the reality is there's been a whole lot of things that have fed into the situation we find ourselves in Australia. But for a local group to decide to take some action, that is interesting. So you've just given us a bit of the backstory to what kind of motivated this get-together. But one of the things that you've actually identified is the need to actually build, if you can, 12 homes within 12 months. Who will they be targeted towards?
Yeah, it's a combination, Adam. So we'll be looking at, in the first instance, the expression of interest is really to capture the builders and developers out there, not just locally but beyond our region. Obviously, we have a preference for supporting our local builders and developers, but we really need to solve this problem at a wider level. So the first thing is to see what they want to do and understand what are their incentives, what are the things that are going to open the gate for them to walk through. The other side of that equation is lining up landholders. So in the Emerald area and beyond, land is less of an issue than the actual construction of the housing. So that's a real good benefit for us, but we need to take advantage of that and facilitate the opportunity between the landholder and the builder/developer. So that's just an expression of interest process that we've put online, and we've already had some good, early levels of response. It's not due to close till the 15th of June, so there's a bit of time ahead of us. But we're also looking at other things that fit into that space. So modern methods of construction. So many people would know that there is a need for overcoming that construction workforce that's not in our backyard all the time. And sometimes that can be overcome by quality, pre-manufactured housing that can then come into a region. So we're actually working with a startup firm to get an example home, a display home, in our region to show people the quality of what a modern method of manufacturing can do for us. As you know, the perception out there is probably less than of great value in terms of they'd probably see a donga or something like that. And we're trying to change that behaviour, I suppose, in regions around the type of housing that we might get in the region is a mix. It's not one solution for everything. It's actually a variety of solutions that are going to get to that 12 houses in 12 months.
Hearing it from Peter Dowling, CEO of the Central Highlands Development Corporation, local action being taken to try and address the housing shortage in Emerald, which is a thriving country town. Many people are actually blown away, Peter, if they've never been through Emerald before, just by how vibrant and prosperous the town seems to be compared to some country towns you see when you head west of the Great Divide. But you can be a victim of your own success in some respects, and if you're doing really well, you can soon run into the problem of not having enough places for people to live that want to move to town. So you've addressed that as sort of identified that as an issue and now looking to address it. Will the corporation actually own the houses, or are you just facilitating the meeting of land and developer?
Yeah, great question, Adam. We're the facilitator, so we certainly don't have the capacity to be the owner of product being put on ground, but we're very, very keen to connect the dots, and that's the world that we sort of play in, and connecting the dots from those that are interested in constructing in region to those that have the available land and want to do something of value on it. And one of the really big considerations, and we've had some really good discussions with our local builders and developers, so we certainly don't want to leave them out of the picture at all. And you know, we're very hopeful that they will put in expressions of interest. We're working with the local council who've been there since day one, and they're part of our resources roundtable, so they're contemplating their stock within region and how that can be utilised, and their land stock as well. And then we're also, our resource companies themselves have sort of looked at what stock they have, and we'll go to other entities, particularly in the state government space where, you know, state housing in regions is there as well. So we need to better understand how much do they have, what's available, and how can we better get this mix right to allow us to employ more people.
Great to talk this afternoon, Peter. It'll be interesting to see whether you can achieve this ambitious goal you say you've set yourself, 12 homes built within 12 months, and other regions undoubtedly will be watching keenly with what you do here. Maybe you've potentially stumbled across a recipe, just one of the many recipes we'll need to actually address this bigger picture issue. So best of luck with it, and thanks for your time.
Pleasure, Adam. Thanks, mate.
Peter Dowling, CEO of the Central Highlands Development Corporation.